Good evening, and thank you for joining me at Music Today. This is Keitaro Harada. The concept of this show is to bring in an artist each episode and have a conversation with the artist about a performance we will all watch and listen together. The live component is very important because I encourage all of you to say hello or comment or ask questions to the artist. The idea of this show came about when COVID-19 hit, and I wanted a platform to keep the music going for our fans. Even though we may not be able to experience live performances together right now, I wanted a place where music lovers can join easily to converse with the artists and see more of a personal side of us. Music Today is a bilingual show. The live streams that are streamed during your evening is usually in English, and the shows that broadcast during your morning time will be in Japanese for the fans in Japan. If you want to improve on your Japanese skills, you're more than welcome to watch the Japanese interviews too. After the live stream, you could click on the subtitle button that's around here to listen in Japanese and read it in English. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in our guests for tonight. Since we on this side cannot hear you applaud, please do me a huge favor and use clapping emojis, or you can write clap, 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 so that you can, we know that you are there participating. Please welcome our special guest, wonderful musician, pianist, dear friend, Conrad Tao.
Hey.
Hello, hello. I like the hand.
Hi, everybody.
No one has danced for their introduction.
Oh, so I danced through my whole life.
I feel that there was a lot of dancing when we had. We
had some good nights.
Had some good nights right from the get-go. For our viewers, Conrad and I met 2016, I think, was the first encounter, which was when Conrad came and did his debut with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. We played Rachmaninoff with Giancarlo Guerrero, I think
so. And it was like right before that hall started its renovation, I think.
Exactly. And I think it was like day 2 of your visit. We went out for some Korean barbecue, and then we had probably more than we can drink.
That was a long night. That's what
that was a long night. Because I don't remember what happened. Cheers to water. H2O on the rocks. All right. Well, Conrad, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Let's go ahead and start talking about music.
Yeah.
Tell us about this piece.
So this is a piece that I wrote at the end of 2016. So this was a piece, it was premiered, this is a piano concerto. This piece is called The Oneiroi in New York. It was a piano concerto. It was written for an orchestra in Florida, based in multiple places. They perform in multiple parts of Florida in the Treasure Coast, I think, the Atlantic Classical Orchestra. And I wrote this piece. We premiered it in March of 2017, but I wrote it like between December 2016, maybe November 2016, and like the February or so in the next year. And when I think back at it, I think like, because I considered this piece as like uniquely hedonistic and over the top in my own writing. And I suspect that I know that while writing the piece, really prioritized, like, I want this music to feel fun and intuitive. And I think I was definitely like, it was written post 2016 election and pre-inauguration. So I think there was a lot of coiled anxiety on my mind during the writing of this piece.
I see. Conrad, you write for a lot of different medium and wonderful works for orchestras too. What is your composition process? What is are you presented with a project that and then you start writing, or do you usually are thinking of some melodies that you're always writing down and then formulating it in your head? Or
I think that for the most part, musical ideas come after the project is defined.
Okay.
But it also, like, not all of my pieces start from musical ideas. Sometimes they're more. I work with words a lot in my own process. I take a lot of notes. I write a lot of notes on my phone, and it's sort of sometimes it's an image, sometimes it's like a little mini list or poem. So it's my process is defined, I think, by like, I try to work in different environments. I try to work on paper, on a computer, within the computer, multiple different programs. I find it really useful to like try to translate my ideas multiple times as I'm like finding them and exploring them and trying them out. So
do you find yourself in front of the piano when you're composing?
Sometimes. For this piece, I wrote a lot of it with like the assistance of a piano. But and like usually directly into a computer though.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I guess melodies, does it just come to you? Like, do you wake up, because I'm not a composer, but I'm always envious of composers, and I treasure the conversations that I have with composers. But like when a melody comes in, you like suddenly wake up, or when you're walking in the street, you find yourself, inspired by something. Do you write it in melody, or do you sing it into your phone? Or
I've sung stuff into my phone, not for this piece, I don't think. This piece I wrote from beginning to end in sequence, and I think I really wanted to let this piece follow its own logic. I was also really listening to so much improvised music at the time, and I always am listening to a lot of improvised music, but I was listening to like really virtuosic improvised music a lot at the time, and so that informs the title in a way. Like, there are aspects of the piece that refer to a maybe more identifiable like jazz vocabulary at times. So this piece was kind of just, I made it a goal, like, I will just write what seems to come next. I will go with it. Like,
I'm actually glad that you said that, because it really sets the tone, especially the improvisational aspect of it. But it's like calculated improvisation.
It's all very notated out. But
yeah, but it's still improvisation in the realm of,
and trying to capture something about the spirit. I mean, in this piece, I'm trying to explore like, I don't know. Let's.
And here we're listening to the second movement. It's not bad connection, it's just dark. What I think is awesome is that it's conversing. It's improvisatory, but it's conversing with instruments of the orchestra.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it helps to have experience being an orchestra player.
Yeah, most definitely.
I want to write music that actually feels good to play.
Yeah, no, and then I have to say thank you to that statement because many times we get compositions that I want to ask the composer, did you try playing this? Like, did you try?
Well, I have no excuse,
Yeah, you're always playing with orchestra, so yeah.
I hope I'm just trying to use the things I've learned.
Do your movements have names or
not in this piece? This piece
okay.
I just called the movement 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's the piece is kind of conceived as like a continuous thing, but there are definite like distinct elements. But like while we were listening to that clip, I was thinking like there, I don't know if with this piece if there were melodies. It was more a shape, a gesture early on. And someone asked why Oneiroi American Nightmares in 2017. Yeah, actually, I mean, yes, considering the context of writing this piece post 2016 election and pre 2017 inauguration, maybe American Nightmares in 2017. I think no, I just had this image. The title came after the piece.
I see.
Not always the case, but in this case, the title came after the piece, and I was just thinking, I like this image of the Oneiroi, these deities of dreams and yes, potentially of nightmares. I liked the idea of following these deities as they, wreak havoc in the streets of New York. It was and New York somehow, because I was trying to capture something specific and looking for a title that evoked that.
Well, and then I think it's also a balance. Because I know, we've been friends. I know how words are so important to you and balance of words and how it looks. If it was just the Oneiroi, it doesn't probably.
Yeah,
because it says in New York City, there's this sort of a balance, and it makes people think, what is Conrad trying to do here?
I think, yeah. I mean, titles are a really fun game.
It is.
How do you find the title that has specificity, that you're trying to like open up people's associations, and
exactly.
It's a poetic game. It's a poetry thing.
I want us to listen to the last movement towards the end of this piece.
Very jazz inflected movement.
Yeah, this has like blues harmonies. It's got really jazz improvisatory moments, and I love that there's this percussion, drum set, hi-hat-ness.
One player.
Yeah, it's super cool. I love how you make an uncomfortable harmony feel comfortable with those trombones.
That's such a nice comment.
But you know what I mean, right? It's for as a conductor to tune that is just a nightmare, but you made it comfortable. That the what the fighting against the chords that are fighting against made it comfortable.
That was, I mean, first of all, I just want to say, like, I was so moved by, like, the orchestra did such a good job.
Yeah, they sound fantastic.
Yeah, they sound so good. And like, I was so grateful that the percussionist was down, because like the last movement is mostly like percussion playing on drum set, but like elsewhere in the piece, I've got that percussionist on slide whistle, on Almglocken, and like it's a whole, like it was a setup. We did it recently. One of my last concerts before everything got canceled was with the Seattle Symphony, and we played this piece, but it was like a concert that we didn't have much rehearsal, so we did this piece on. I think we did this piece on one rehearsal.
Oh, that sounds scary.
And it was scary, but like I had the chance to meet with the conductor beforehand, and they split the percussion part up into 3
instead of one person.
But like, I am really proud of the fact that we got it together in one rehearsal, and it felt good.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know how a lot of composers, they do an homage to Bach, and and then there's always some kind of like a chorale that usually a Dies Irae or something, but there was this ostinato that you had with the trombones that and it kept going. Is that coming from a different part of the concerto, or is it?
The whole concerto is basically rooted in. So you have it's I mean, primarily it's a gestural curiosity.
I see.
So you throughout the piece, I hope, if I've done my job correctly, like you become accustomed to hearing this figure and this interval, the third, as like a descending relationship, and it's just an inversion.
And you know, it reminds me of Benjamin Britten
I'll take it.
from Turn of the Screw. There's something in Turn of the Screw, his opera, that is that the character Miles sings that is just like very, very similar to that. And it like when the trombone started playing that, I was like, oh, that sounds like Benjamin Britten.
And it's also like stacked fifths. It's all this.
Yeah. It's
Sort of.
that harmony, isn't it? Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Can we, for our audience today, could you tell us a little bit about how you were introduced to music, and then
Sure.
why the turning point of why you decided music was the thing that you wanted to pursue?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember how it started. Because I got started before I was recording any memories. So, according to my parents, when I was about 18 months old, I somehow found myself on a piano bench. Maybe someone put me there. Maybe I clambered. But somehow I started picking out nursery tunes at the piano. We have these old VHS tapes of like me picking out Mary Had a Little Lamb, like one note at a time.
Did you have siblings, or did your parents have?
I have an older sister who, that's why we had a piano in the house.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, a sister 5 years my senior who was taking lessons with a local piano teacher. And so it just, I guess it was a obsession early on. It became that like every time we were visiting friends that it was just, you know, I would find my way to a piano. But I started violin studies first because my parents approached my sister's piano teacher, and she's just, he's too young, the hands are too small, like it's just not possible. So I was, because unlike pianos, violins come in extra small sizes. I started on Suzuki method when I was 2.5, I think, with like group classes. And so those are my earliest musical memories, are like group Suzuki violin classes.
Nice. Wonderful. Where does taking piano lessons come in to play?
I think that began shortly after. I started piano lessons by the time I was like, before I was 4, just with like a family friend. And I have really fond memories of those early years. It was just, you know, it was like showing up and playing with a friend. And it was that old, you know, standard way of teaching. You know, I think he would take the left hand, I would take the melody up top. And yeah, and then when I was 5 years old, we moved. I was born in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
that's where I went my freshman year and my sophomore year.
Got it.
I lived in Champaign the first year. I lived in Urbana the second year.
I was born in Urbana. We moved to Champaign while I was very, very young. But when I was 5, we moved a little closer to Chicago.
I see.
And once I was there, I found 2 of the most important teachers, 3 of the most important teachers. I feel really grateful. Like I started studying piano with Emilio Del Rosario, who was a really great, really, really wonderful teacher and like a really great person. And I think probably he was the one who really planted the seed that like music making could be this lifelong process of inquiry and this like endlessly fun, joyous, curious questioning thing, because he really brought that spirit out. And so in addition to him, I also started working with studying violin with Desiree Roustrat, who's fabulous, and many people who are in the Chicago music scene might know Desiree. And then I also started music theory and composition lessons with someone who taught music theory at that school. His name was Matthew Hagel. So I feel really grateful that I think that was a crucial moment where I did find mentors who were just really down to teach me stuff.
And then of course, like Emilio, who really was fostered and found gifted young pianists and composers, right? Did he teach you composition?
No, he just taught me piano. But
Okay.
yes, I mean, Mr. D, as we called him,
Uh-huh.
was so funny and so warm. At least when I was working with him, and like, and just so, I don't know, so like generous. Like he did find a lot of really talented young kids, and he fostered like musical development, and he like, but there was also such a casualness and such a like sense of play and joy, and yeah, I feel really lucky that my first like really serious piano teacher was also not a very serious person. I think that was actually very important.
Right. And then it actually sets the tone, right? Because you get this ideology of what a pianist or what a professional musician is as a little child. You just don't know.
Through it.
Yeah. You know, with you, Conrad, you're such a philosopher. You're such a thinker. You're such, you know, I could see you with any profession really. But you chose music. And I want to know, in addition to the performing, like you do so much composition. So like, where does this the comfort of composing come to play?
Well, I mean, now I have a clear answer. I have no idea where it came from. I just knew that it was pretty early on that, to me, it seemed completely natural. Like, because in the sense that like, once I started learning to read music, it just made sense. Like the next obvious next step was trying to teach myself how to write. So I had like, I have some sketchbooks. I don't know if my parents still have them, probably not, but we had these old sketchbooks from when I was 3, and I was trying to teach myself how to notate music. And I had at that point started learning to read it. And so in the same way that I think young kids, like when they're learning to write, they're getting a lot of stuff wrong. Like in those early sketchbooks, like none of the clefs are in the right direction. I don't fully understand how key signatures work. Like everything's spelled wrong, but like it was evidently early on, there was this attempt at figuring out like, what does it mean to invent music basically. And I was already like, I didn't have the word for it at the time, but like improvisation was always an important part of how I explored being at the instrument. So it emerged organically, but like over time, the skill sets diverged and began to feel like very different parts of my mind. But recently they've, I think, come back together. Composing basically is this opportunity to create a container, a musical container in which you can explore anything you want. Which is, I mean, at this point, that's also how I think about as a pianist. It's also how I think about recital programs. When I'm putting together a recital program, you are basically composing with the program as your canvas. So at this point, I've started to see how they're all like really interlocked processes. But you know, composing gives you this capacity to imagine. It's like, you know.
Yeah, wonderful. Tell us a little bit about Junction Trio.
Yeah, so this is something, the Junction Trio is a group with Stefan Jakiv on violin, Jay Campbell on cello, and me on piano. And they reached out to me. They reached out to me in 2015, which still blows my mind. I'm still so grateful that they did. They just reached out. I think they had played together like in Korea a lot, actually. And they were like itching to do something a little bit more part-time, like a little more solid than the usual format of chamber music that we as players usually experience, which is like the one-night stand model where you're just like, you know, we're all going to come together and rehearse for like 2 days and play. And we wanted something a little more substantial. So we got together and read Mendelssohn D minor trio, and we're like, this feels good. Let's just start playing. And then we did it. And I cannot overstate, like, we don't play a ton. Like, we're all so busy that it's and that upcoming performance that you're seeing right now is extremely canceled.
Mhm.
It's really sad. We only got to play a couple of the shows that we had scheduled this year, but like, my God, I've learned so much. I've learned so much playing with them, and they're such extraordinarily sensitive and thoughtful musicians. And yeah, like, just such creative musicians. And I think playing with them and growing as a person and as a musician with them, like, gave me such a new kind of confidence in a way, because that's what happens when you are lucky enough to create and work in a context where there aren't egos in the room. I feel so lucky to have a rehearsal context, to have chamber music partners where you just trust that people have your back, that people are listening, that every single decision, you have this capacity to surprise each other, because you just trust that everything that's happening is happening for a reason. And even if it's not happening for a reason, people will hear it and notice it and respond to it. And it's such a blessing to get to make music with people who are that thoughtful.
I've had the privilege to work with Jay Campbell before. We did the Elgar Concerto a season and a half ago, and he's such an awesome musician,
and such a real person.
He is a real person. Yeah,
and it makes I think that was also what was so gratifying, because when they reached out to me in 2015, it was kind of a time when I felt a little bit alienated from my day-to-day, and I felt a little bit as though I hadn't yet found the people who I had a really, really intense resonance with, other musicians, and Stefan and Jay were peers. And I think that was what was new for me, because I was 21 at the time, so I was still new to having peers. I was so used to being the youngest person.
Yeah, you were doing solo career.
Yeah,
and you didn't have the time, because you're going around the world doing concertos by yourself, so there's no time for you to make friends, really, or play with friends, right?
I had started touring when I was 12, so sort of it hadn't. I had been always the youngest person in the room. You just get very used to that after a decade of it, and then working with them, it was just oh wait, I have to contribute. I have to be an active participant. It was so. I feel so lucky. I feel so grateful that they were able to teach me.
Well, it must be a little bit of not more than a little bit of a relief, because you're coming from 100% and now you contribute 33.3%, and in the most positive way, I'm saying. It's not a negation. It's 3 times more the joy. Yeah. Deborah is saying that it's such a gorgeous view. Where are we, and what are we looking at?
So we are at the Shaolin Ryu Theater in Rockport, and I will confess that I don't actually know what body of water that is behind it. But yes, this is one of the most beautiful halls I've ever played in, and it's that perfectly sized recital hall vibe.
If I would get so probably distracted if I was playing here. If I was a performer, because what if there was a whale or a dolphin that just
amazing though.
I would completely lose it. It's there's a fish.
I know you say you I have the kind of personality where I'm that just sounds fun.
Right?
I also recently got to play Quartet for the End of Time at March Music here in New York, which is a venue on March, and it was just so you felt the motion of the water. I love it.
I wonder if there are speakers going outside outside the window, so that people can be on boats to listen to the music.
The idea, actually. Yeah.
It's very COVID-19 friendly, don't you think?
That's true. We could play inside.
Yeah, you could play inside, but shoot the music outwards, and people can be on boats. No one's gonna get the virus. I think it's so good. I think, Conrad, you might have to start a festival. Just to exactly. I totally think it's we have to be creative during this time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. I also want to share to our viewers one page with the Junction Trio, which is this album. Tell us a little bit about this project.
So Jay and I, we all wanted to do something that would concretely help with the protests that are happening nationwide. But I felt like it was important for us to recognize our shared roots here in New York City, and to do something just to provide as much material support as we could to people who were risking so much and really were heroic, especially in the first week of protests here in New York. And so we Bandcamp on the first Friday. Bandcamp is, by the way, it's a sort of musical marketplace. We can all upload files and independently sell our own digital music and stuff. It's a very good service. And on the first Friday of each month, I believe they started this during the pandemic. On the first Friday of each month, Bandcamp Friday happens, where Bandcamp waives its entire revenue share, which I think is 15%. So 100% of proceeds minus some small processing fees, 100% of proceeds go to artists. And so on June 5th or whatever that first Friday was, we decided, initially we were hoping to, so the performances on this album, on that Bandcamp page, the performances were mostly recorded at that concert that we just watched.
Oh, okay, nice.
And so we were hoping to get those recordings for maybe a COVID artist relief funds early on in the pandemic, but because emails are always emails and everything gets lost and we always respond really late, we only got the recordings fairly recently. And so by that point, history had moved one extra notch forward. And so we wanted to do something that would concretely help out. And we wanted to be it was very important to me that we were transparent about where all the money was going, how much money was out there. And so our very first day of doing this, we each Stefan, Jay, and I all agreed to match all the money that we raised. And then, because I posted about it online on Instagram and stuff, I ended up having a friend who wanted to remain anonymous who also joined in on the matching pledge, and Jay was able to find some extra donors and stuff. Yes, Dave Lake points out that tomorrow this is happening again, this first Friday, everything's going to artists. So this was just our effort to do something concrete and to express support for the people on the ground here, to express support for the movement, we care a lot about this. And so the best way to show that you care is by actually doing something that immediately helps. And so we were very grateful to everyone's support. We were able to raise, once all the matches were accounted for, we were able to raise over $14,000 and distribute it between 3 organizations who are really doing work on the ground, immediate work on the ground. Freedom Arts Movement, which is a collective of artists that at the time were doing a lot of street medic work and providing supplies for people like water, masks. as well as medical support. Survived and Punished, the New York chapter of Survived and Punished, which is a nationwide coalition that has existed for a long time that is working to decriminalize survival of domestic violence and gender-based violence, because the way that our criminal justice system, which is a system of justification, not a system of justice, but the way that our criminal justice system is currently structured actually criminalizes survival and self-defense for people who are victims and survivors of domestic violence. So Survived and Punished at the time in New York was doing a fundraiser for a commissary fundraiser for currently incarcerated people. And then we also donated to the Emergency Release Fund, which is a bail fund based here in New York City that specifically works to help get trans people out, is also trying to contribute to getting as many people out of Rikers Island as possible, which was an early epicenter of COVID-19. So trans people and especially medically vulnerable people. So yeah, 3 organizations. And then, the album is still up. I encourage people to take advantage of tomorrow's, again, lack of revenue share, like Bandcamp waiving their revenue share. We have not yet decided where the money will next go, but trying to spread the wealth across organizations, or not even organizations, just collectives and people really doing immediate work here on the ground, not without necessarily the benefit of a strong nonprofit structure or something.
Right. No, this is absolutely wonderful. And for our viewers, I posted both on Facebook and YouTube on the comments, the jcttrio.bandcamp.com. So please go check it out. And tomorrow is a good day to do that.
Yes,
for sure.
And donate as much as you want. It's $10 or more. So if you're feeling generous, please, everything helps.
I like how this or more is in such small font, but it should just be a much bigger font. I
think we're pressure. Literally just pressure people.
Right.
Want to help.
Well, we all know that $10 is just such a small number when it comes to this amount of music. It's unbelievable amount of performance.
I'm not gonna try to give it a number value.
Because I was curious, I just wanted to, so that we are all aware, Conrad, that it's the Back Harbor.
Oh, amazing.
And I think David also had commented earlier that it's called the Sandy Bay off of Rockport, Massachusetts. So we learn something new every day, and
clearly I'm so educated about the places I go.
Well, you go to not these days, but the traveling musician lifestyle is just you arrive and you perform the next day, and then you travel again the following day. So if you're lucky, you get to explore a little bit, but if you're not, then it just ends up being that's a nice ocean, beach, water, river, water.
And actually, the funny thing, so the amount, you're in Japan right now, so you I'm sure you travel long distances with some frequency, and so the airline mile situation. We all get good at understanding our systems and stuff.
That dominates most of our life, the mileage. And
so depressing. We get together and we talk about
it's not that depressing. It's not that depressing, I promise you.
But anyway, what made me laugh so hard was that it was so on the nose. If it was in a screenplay, it would be bad writing. I got home, my last concert before everything got canceled was on March 10th.
Okay.
In Los Angeles. And then I flew home on the 12th, I think, and by that point it was very clear. I was okay, I see what's ahead. It's we're all gonna hunker down. But what was in the mail that day was something from United, and it was a package congratulating me on reaching million miler status, which had actually happened in January. So I was surprised to get it later, but the timing was so funny. And then on top of that, the
Mhm.
package that they sent, which is like such a waste. It's like all this
Mhm.
plastic and shit. But like, the package that they sent was falling apart.
Oh no.
It was like breaking apart at the seams, and like there was like this styrofoam like popping. It looked like it was bleeding almost.
Oh
And
no.
I was just like, this is too on the nose. That at the
Yeah.
moment where I'm about to like basically all my flights are gonna be canceled, or like all my
Mhm.
concerts are being canceled. I'm not gonna fly like for the foreseeable future. And then it's just like this happens, and I'm like, the universe is a little bit too on the nose right now, you know?
Yeah, it all kind of, but you know, one of the things, and then this becomes totally nerdy freaking flyer conversation, but
Oh, I love it.
I was nervous that because all the flights, you know, we're not gonna able to fly that much.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I lose my status? Like, do I, like, please someone make a statement? It just only takes one airline to make a statement that you can keep your status, and everyone will join that. Everyone, and then once one did, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, because you know, we get so spoiled. But like once you get used to a certain way of
Oh
traveling,
yeah, I mean, like it's embarrassing, but it's true.
you cannot, you kind of cannot go back.
Traveling is like so. It's really quite. It is genuinely embarrassing to me how much more tolerable the amount of traveling, because like it's the only way that it would be tolerable, the amount of flying that we do. Like anyway,
Yeah.
like
Let's. I'm going to draw our conversation back to something that is more important than how comfortable we are on the plane.
Yeah.
This just got uploaded today,
Yes.
and I want
I
you
made
to
it.
share us
Yeah,
what
I
it
made it
is.
a couple of weeks ago. So there's a wonderful collective of queer musicians here in New York that have an organization called Chamber Queer, and they've been doing stuff for a while. They've been doing live shows for a while, but they were planning on doing. They basically organized a digital pride festival for the month of June. And so they asked a bunch of people, a bunch of queer musicians, if they would be interested in making something, making a video. And so this debuted a couple weeks ago as part of a program. And this is the second video that I've made in this kind of format, like a kind of composed video piece, not like a video of me playing or something. Although I think soon there will.
Are you collecting audio from your phone, or
These are just videos I've taken from my phone. In fact, I made a lot of this video on my phone.
oh, really? That's really cool. Are we looking at the same image on
Same
loop?
image. Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of that was, so basically the way that that very opening works is like it's the same video clip of I was at a march that began at the Stonewall Inn here in New York City and made its way up to Union Square. So it was like a specifically like it was specifically you know, a queer focused march, and that was my first time out at the protests, at a protest.
I see.
And it was so that clip at the opening with the truck running by, like those were people honking in solidarity, because we had signs saying like "Honk for Black Lives," and it was amazing. I mean, it was like, you know, that to be in that crowd, which was like doing its best to stay socially distant and everyone was wearing masks, but like to be in that environment and to hear so powerfully this like evidence of solidarity, right? This display of solidarity from just people going about their lives, going about their work. I mean, these are workers who have to work during this time, who are being made to work. And anyway, that was so powerful to me. So I like stacked that video on top of each other, and the pitches are happening because I'm like taking the video with my phone with this app, and I'm changing the speed of the video. So
I see. I was wondering about it, and I was going to ask you, huh?
So I've really also like just been enjoying making in this format, writing in this format. Like it's a different kind of writing. There was no notation involved to make this, but it is still writing, right? It's a different kind of writing. And I really loved. I always figured that if I wasn't a musician, I would want to be a filmmaker or like a film editor at least. And so I was quite excited to, with these unfortunate circumstances, to have to learn a new skill that has always been kind of a passion anyway.
Well, I think a lot of musicians has had to become film editors during this pandemic.
We're all companies now.
Yeah, we are definitely that. You know,
I mean, look at what we're doing now. Okay?
Yeah, this is wonderful. I want to make sure I save it so that we don't share everything, so people can go. I will
post go to listen to it in its full glory.
Exactly. But it's actually really great that we got to hear you talk about it, because it always requires some kind of explanation, right? And then with the explanation, it gets a lot. We get to enhance our experience listening to it and watching it in this case. So,
well, sure, absolutely. I just it's interesting because this is a kind of this method of making music or just making a piece. It is related to like how I used to, like, I have always kind of like recorded bits and pieces of material like on my phone and like gone back to it. But like because of the pandemic, I found early on in the pandemic that like that was all I was doing. Like all I was doing was just like making these little videos of me like playing. Like one of the instruments that I used all the time was this. Like,
I saw that, yeah.
You know, this is like, and I've this shows up in a piece that I wrote for the trio last year. So this has been in my like mind for a while, my musical brain for a while. But like, but all I wanted to do was like I made music or videos of myself like improvising on tables, on the walls, like just making like my ceiling started leaking, and I tried to improvise with that, and I realized that like music making became this way of keeping up with my life and documenting my life. It was like a way of staying present in the early days of the pandemic, where it was just like this feeling of constant time and this. I mean, now I look back at it because now things feel very different, and it was 3 months ago, and I'm like, I was journaling like crazy. It was really intense interior time, and so I'm very grateful that that video was commissioned by Chamber Queer, but I also made a video commissioned by Works in Process at the Guggenheim, and that was the first impetus where I was like, okay, let me try to stitch together all of these documentations and see what happens if I try to make it like a cohesive thing.
Well, and then I think what's beautiful about what you're saying and what you're doing is that you're making music about now.
Yeah.
And it's not just, oh, here's a beautiful melody, I'm going to put harmonies, and then it's going to be about butterflies and kings and queens, you know? Or
that sounds nice too.
Yeah, those are nice too. And there are definitely moments for that in history. But like right now, musicians have so many options, especially during COVID-19. And had options during this quarantine, and still have options moving forward. Like for me, the reason why I even started this music today was because I went back to Japan for about 5 days with my wife to do a concert, and then the concert had to become without audience because COVID-19 had just hit, and so it was broadcast live, and then you could only watch it at that moment. And then a few weeks, then I couldn't go back home to the US because there was the flight reduction to the United States. Then about second week of May, the Tokyo Symphony, who I had conducted for that concert, said that we're going to rebroadcast it again, but in a process where people can donate money. So it'll be free, live, rebroadcast, and then people can comment. And so I was watching that concert, and everyone's commenting, and then the comments are going across the screen, and I started to comment. Yeah. And then I thought, it's my first time in my entire life that I'm commenting on my own performance live with an audience. And I thought, oh, this is a platform that is so necessary, because classical music fans are hungry to go to concerts, and they cannot go to concerts, but they want to interact with artists.
Yeah.
And they want to know, just like the way we just did right now, where you were talking over the music, it might be a disservice to the art, but it's actually great for the viewers to know what you're thinking and processing. Like, this is a moment that this is happening. We never get to do that while we're playing.
I mean, I feel as though, because I've, like, in addition to all the stuff that we've talked about today, like, I've also been performing. Like, I kind of dived into the live streaming thing. I was like, I was enthusiastic to explore what you could do with that format too. And like, it also gave me, I've done some live streaming and I've done some like recorded sets, and doing the live experiences, I've really felt like really like newly confident in what the what the core substance of a concert is.
Yeah.
It's basically just the shared social experience, the social agreement. Like, that is like such a crucial ingredient, like one of the central ingredients. And it has me thinking about like the word concert, like the idea of like to be in concert with, like to be, it's the etymology of concert is like agreement. And so it's this social agreement where it's like we will gather and experience something together. And there's multiple versions of that, right? Like if it's a previously filmed thing, it's like you're kind of watching a broadcast together.
Right.
It's like a live stream. It's more like the nerves of being a live performer still exist. Like it's heightened by this new risk of technical failure. And it makes me weirdly like more confident in what a concert actually is, that there is this irreplaceable thing that people will nonetheless find a way to channel, which is quite motivating. I don't mean to say that live streams are at all a substitute for concerts, but like,
no, it's not.
There is an energy, a sort of need, not even just an energy, like there is a basic human need that can be, that people are being really creative in funneling into other avenues.
Well, and then the thing is that with COVID-19, we're so distant, but with live stream, we're so much closer than ever.
It's a weirdly intimate medium, right? It's like disconnected.
Very intimate.
You're also like, there's nowhere to hide, you know, and
you can't edit it. It's
right.
What you say is live, and we have the choice of being careful about. We have to be, like somewhat professional about it, but we can also actually be ourselves,
which I've always wanted to tried to do on stage anyway. Like I think what it also when you're talking also about like how people in the audience want to comment and participate, like one of my biggest hopes ever, like one of my biggest picture hopes as a musician is that my music and my music making, like my playing and my composing, like that if I can make everyone feel, if I can basically make everyone aware of the basic fact that they are all participants, like even if you are in an audience sitting quietly, like that is an active participation. Listening is not a passive thing. Listening is, you are so integral to what is happening. Like, and so I think what I'm like interested in is, I feel as though the comment section and the live stream experience really highlights that like in order for a live stream to feel really exciting, like that kind of participation is really important.
Exactly.
And there's a part of me that hopes that whenever we find a way to do, like, I mean, you have audiences already, lucky you, but when I get to have play with audiences again, I kind of hope that like, because when I'm watching other people's live streams, I'm like making noise in my house, I'm cheering, like there's a part of me that hopes that people will feel more able to like be themselves in the audience too, and like
well, that's the thing, you can be casual and comfortable. I think comfortable is the right word, but to be at your home and enjoy it. But you're, from the performer's perspective, we are reaching to far more people. Like, so as you had mentioned, like I'm in Tokyo right now, and I just did a concert last week which had 12,000 viewers live watching and commenting, and it was free and they were donating.
Right.
But that's more than a typical classical concert hall, like
Right.
3 times more, 4 times more the capacity of what we're able to reach at one moment, right? So
Yeah.
of course it doesn't replace the live component, like performing in the same hall, and also it doesn't replace the energy that we get from the audience when we are in the same space. That is irreplaceable, but it's a different kind of energy.
Well, I mean, the thing that you lose most is that you're no longer literally listening to the same air.
Mm-hmm.
But I have found from pretty much the first big live streaming experience I had, like, it doesn't change the fact that everyone is still right there with you.
Exactly.
What's just different is that you really don't know where they are and how
Mhm.
they're listening. And for me, at least, actually, there was something that emerged that was kind of beautiful about that, where it's just like, yeah, energy is energy. Where it's like there's something very humbling about it, where you're just like, I
Mhm.
don't know if you're listening on speakers, on headphones. I don't know if you're cooking while you're listening to this.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're paying attention or not. Like,
Mhm.
something very beautiful about surrendering that control too,
Yeah.
and it's something that is actually applicable to live performance too. Like, you don't have control over how people are listening, and now that's
Mhm.
more the case. So
Yeah. Before we close, I want to share you one thing that was really first time ever experience was, right now we're now putting audience in the concert hall at 50% capacity, and programs are shorter. It's within the hour. So 50% of the audience comes in, and then there's no intermission, but they leave, and then the other 50% comes in later. So the orchestra on stage or the performers do it twice.
you're doing 2 sets.
So, right, 2 set of the same program. So everyone, ticket holders, all the concerts that got postponed, they're able to still, all of them have the choice to watch it or come to it. But one thing that's really, I still chuckle this week at my concerts is that at the very top of the show on the Voice of God, they announce, you may not say bravo, you can, bravo, like you're not allowed to bravo anymore. Bravo is like
Bravo's canceled.
Bravo's a no go. And so you've never heard that before. And then I am like, oh yeah, you're not allowed to speak. You can applaud, but you're not allowed to bravo. No more bravos.
Well, for the time being, you can type it.
Exactly. Well, anyways, Conrad, thank you so much for sharing your music, but like most importantly, sharing what you're doing now through COVID-19 and the current affair, Black Lives Matter, and just being present and in the moment and making music of today. So this is
Thanks.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then for our viewers, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed many of the things that were discussed. Please do share this video and come back and visit us again. Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録、いいね、そしてこのビデオをぜひシェアしてください。